Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and a privilege for us to get together for these updates. And thank you for those of you that shared the link and join us for these. It's the hardest broadcast I do all week. I am telling you right now, it is the one that requires me to sort through and look at more things and get through it in order to get ready for this discussion. It is the most work I have to do every week. And so that's why sometimes I am literally running into the studio. So thank you for those of you with your wonderful grace for me. Thank you so much for being gracious with me. And then we always have the technical challenges that seem to always happen right as we're about to go on the air. So I'm not sure exactly what that's about, but some of you just need to keep praying for me. Maybe we're just battling more gremlins out there. So thank you to all of you who are part of the house and are here with us today. And again, we're always grateful for you. We're always grateful for those that make it their business to get in and join with us in these conversations. And it's always a blessing to hear from all of you as you're standing in faith in this hour. And we do have a website that we publish for these weekly news updates. And again, this is a labor of love. It is something that we do for our family, for those that are part of the remnant out there. Sorry about that. And on the top, we always have our handy banner. So that'll take you to the latest broadcast. And we do, of course, have a search bar for those that are still keeping track of certain things. And yes, we do need those survival guides. We still need them, guys. Because it keeps, as one after another, there's more and more disasters that continue to manifest out there. And so we are seeing that. We're seeing that a tremendous amount. It's one of the challenges that we're seeing in our world is a lot of conflict. One of the battles that we're seeing out there, or the things that we're seeing out there, is a lot of conflicts are being set up. And so we talked a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you guys remember this, but we talked a couple of weeks ago about the spirit of war, or the war being loosed in the earth, and we of course see this in the book of Revelation, but again, things repeat themselves. So regardless of your position and thoughts on that, we're seeing exactly that. We're seeing a spirit of war that is being loosed in the nations, and it is continuing to cause repercussions. And so we are all paying attention to this. It's something that we can't get away from. That's a reality of these days that we're in. And the confrontations are all around you if you're paying attention. Remember that the whirlwind comes for idolatry, according to the scripture. So again, there's things that we see. And of course, there's nations that are beginning to repent. So of course, Yahuwah gives people space to repent. And that's something that we have to remember. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight's top story, I know you're thinking, why is this the top story? Well, this particular story is starting to really heat up, guys. This whole Greenland thing is really, really starting to become a thing. Okay. And so Trump has now ordered the generals now to start drawing up plans, for the pop-ups, to invade Greenland. The U.S. president is emboldened by success of Maduro capture and operation. And Trump has ordered his special forces commanders to draw up a plan for the invasion of Greenland. And he is really set, guys, on the acquisition of Greenland for the United States. And but it's being resisted by senior military figures, the Mail on Sunday has learned. Sources say that the policy hawks around the U.S. president, led by political advisor Stephen Miller, have been so emboldened by the success of the operation to capture Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro that they want to move quickly to seize the island before Russia or China makes a move. It's just interesting how they all make this stuff up. And Russia was poking fun at this just this week. So we're going to get to that here in a moment. But definitely a lot of news is going on around Greenland, right? So are we going to see a conflict now? With Greenland, what did Greenland do to us, right? What did poor Greenland do? Greenland's just sitting there. But that doesn't matter. Yes, they're continuing to discuss it. And of course, this has got the NATO and the EU up in our arms because now they're not sure where the alliances are, where the allegiances are. They're starting to reevaluate the lines of allegiance, right? And so this is bringing us to a new place as World War III fears grow, as Russia threatens NATO and vows. Watch this now. Are you looking at this? Are you seeing this? I couldn't believe this when I read this. I could not believe this. So the whole logic behind the whole Greenland thing, guys, and I don't mean to be laughing like it's funny. I mean, I'm laughing like you got to be kidding me. The whole logic behind the Greenland thing was, we got to keep China and Russia in check. You just saw that, how that, we got to do it before they do. And so here comes Russia, and they're threatening NATO, and they vow to help Trump. Listen to this. Help Trump free Greenland. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? So obviously there's more going on here than we understand. Well, free Greenland from who? Putin allies threaten NATO, ridicule Britain, and back Trump over Greenland, raising World War III fears as Russia's war in Ukraine enters the fourth year. And so this was very interesting. The Russian state television floated the idea of assisting the United States in taking control of Greenland. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. The reason why they wanted to do it was to check you guys. And you're like, oh, no, we'll just go over and help you guys get this done. Which tells you that maybe we're not getting quite the story, okay? This is why I laugh at some of this stuff. Because, folks, this is why you can't take it seriously, okay? This is why you got to understand this entire thing is a psyop. Everything we're watching is a psyop. And they are just messing with people's heads so badly. And the poor public, the public is the unwitting victim of this idiocracy that we are walking toward. And it is just that. It is just that. We just heard that a news story today. We may get to it, we may not, but that, there are Gen Zs showing up at college who can't read. Are you kidding me right now? They're showing up after all this talk, after all this braggadocious talk-a-lotta, they're showing up at college without the ability to read. There are no homeschool students that have that problem, by the way, just so you know. So this just goes to show you the indictment on the public education system is in. And it is staggering how bad that system really is. So something for us to keep an eye on and be aware of, because we are walking toward, if you guys saw the movie, Idiocracy. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend movies, but if you haven't seen it and you do decide to see it, what you're going to see is just how Hollywood depicted how crazy we could all go. And you know what shoes they were all wearing? Those muckluck things that everybody wears. That's what they were wearing on their movie, and they used them because they figured nobody would ever care about these shoes. And here everybody's wearing them. And so, folks, we are headed toward idiocracy faster than you care to know. And so there's a lot of reaction going on to this Greenland push. And it is not as funny as I'm making it out. Obviously, this is a big deal. There may, in fact, be some major things going on here. Trump's Greenland push escalates as GOP lawmakers move to make it America's 51st state. Now, we've heard this one before. They said the same thing about Canada, which, by the way, now the Canadians are really nervous. Representative Randy Fine, who is introducing the bill on Monday, says he wants the U.S. to acquire Greenland voluntarily. And I think that the way that the Trump administration is going at it is either way is fine. A House Republican is pushing for Greenland to become the country's 51st state, as President Donald Trump publicly pushes for the Danish territory. So they keep calling it a Danish territory to come under the U.S. And Representative Randy Fine is introducing a bill in order to do that. So it's aiming at authorizing the Trump to take such steps as must be necessary or maybe necessary to acquire Greenland and set it on a pathway of becoming part of the United States. So this is a much slower, more tedious process. I don't think Trump is inclined toward the slow method. He looks more inclined toward, we're just going to come take it. It's what it looks like to me. What do you guys think? It looks like he's just figuring out. What did he tell the Danish? He said, just because your boat landed there 500 years ago doesn't mean it's yours. I'm not even kidding. It's what he said. Just because you landed a boat there 500 years ago doesn't mean it's yours. So one of the things the scripture talks about is moving the ancient landmarks. So, again, whenever countries and nations do this, they can bring judgments upon themselves for doing so. So this is a very dangerous activity going on right here. And but I thought it was fascinating that here we have Russia, who is supposedly the reason why you would need this. And they're going, hey, man, we'll help you. We'll help you get it. We don't like those Danish. Oh, that's crazy. So that's where we are right now. And unfortunately, that is not looking like it's going to change. That continues to be a conversation piece. So I would expect to see some activity in Greenland, guys, at some point. And what gives me that indication? What tells me that we're moving toward a war posture? What kinds of indicators are you looking at on the ground, Peter? Besides the news that is sensational, besides, military movements and governments and things like that, what tells you that we may be moving into this hyper war conflict environment? Well, it's stories like this, guys. And this is the kind of story that when you do see it now, you have no choice but to say, yeesh, this is not good. So Trump is calling for a $1.5 trillion defense budget. That is a 50% jump on a defense budget that's already bigger than the next 20 countries. So it was already that much bigger than everybody else. And they can't pass an audit to save their lives. But we're going to give them another $1.5 trillion because why not? And the president offered a few details in his post on Truth Social, other than to say that the money would pay for his what he calls a dream military. And President Donald Trump on Wednesday declared that he would ask Congress for his $1.5 trillion defense budget in 2027, a massive $500 billion increase from this year's Pentagon budget. So they already have a $1 trillion budget that they're working with. And again, can't pass an audit, guys. You couldn't get away with it, but they can't pass an audit. And the huge boost likely reflects how expensive some of Trump's military ambitions are, from the Golden Dome air defensive effort to his call for a new battleship design. And he is bragging right now, currently, as we speak, bragging out there about battleship designs. And hypersonic missiles make battleships almost obsolete. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they counter this. There has to be a counter. I mean, they're not dumb people, so they had to figure out something. This should be interesting. Because boats can't move very fast, and a hypersonic missile moves pretty fast. And if it goes through a boat and comes out the other side, that boat's going to sink. So, I'm very interested to see how they're gonna deal with this. As an ex-Navy man, a veteran, and some of you veterans out there, you probably are asking the same questions. How you guys dealing with this stuff? You're just going to build bigger boats. Okay, do these things bounce off the hull of the boat? Because if they don't, you got Houston, we got bigger problems. So, again, you can tell the American people that those battleships are great and everything else, but when they're up against a real enemy like China, like Russia, they're going to find that those weapons may not be the tide turner that we think they are. They aren't. This isn't World War II. So I guess that's another element that we have to now look at. And so we're going to talk more about that as time progresses. You can be certain about that. And speaking of war, again, this subject just rumbling right now. Trump says Iran is starting to cross the red line as protesters die in government crackdown. And President warns of very strong options as activists claim at least 544 killed in nationwide demonstration. Now, I saw reports upwards of 2,000 people killed. And I was reacting, Mindy will tell you, I was reacting at 30 people. Okay, so President Donald Trump said Sunday that Iran is starting to cross the U.S. red line, citing a report of civilian deaths and warning that any attack on American interests will be met with overwhelming force as his administration weighs what he called very strong options. Well, I do think this is very interesting, guys. And if you're in that part of the world, then it's obviously very dangerous. But this is very interesting because Iran, as you all well know, was a subject of great consternation from the West. And they were really trying to stoke up a real, rock'em sock'em robots fight with Iran. They really were. And this has been going on for like 20 years now. It's been a nonstop effort to try to get Iran into a slugfest, into an open, volley of transfer of weaponry, like, open fire. And Iran just won't do it. Have not done it and won't do it. Will not engage in that. The most I saw was the barrage they sent to Israel. That's the most I seen Iran do. And so in all this time. And so now we see regime change may potentially be in the works. Okay. So that's why he's talking about this, red line, because I think that they figured out that they had just enough unrest already in the country that they could create enough disturbance that we're going to now see regime change. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that Iran did was they deployed a kill switch to shut down the internet. And Starlink, of course, is the satellite system used by or created by Elon Musk's company. And so basically they started monitoring groups report total national blackout as Tehran moves to isolate protests and block information from leaving the country. So as to prevent some of the international support that started to come in. Iran has imposed a near total internet shutdown and disrupted satellite connectivity in an unprecedented move. And this goes to show you guys, there's a reason why they want these abilities, because they want to be able to isolate and quiet your news ability should there be a crackdown of something. So monitoring groups say it's aimed at isolating nationwide protests and controlling what information reaches the outside world. Absolutely. And so this is overt and straight into your face. They are making themselves very clear. When it gets down to it, they want to control what you know. They don't want the freedom of information flowing in the world. The immediate impact has been visible. Activists and researchers say there's been a dramatic drop in protest videos emerging from Iran over the past 24 hours after days in which footage from Tehran and provincial cities circulated widely online. So all of a sudden, this crackdown is working. And what that does is it has a way of making everyone think in the world like the event's over. Not that anything has changed, but because it's left the screens and it's no longer number one and some other thing can now take over, it makes it look as if it's no longer an issue. So the fervor and the stoke up no longer has the effect. And so this is what Iran is attempting to do. It's not a new tactic. We'll see if it's effective. Stand by, folks. I think we're going to see more manipulation and more of these types of heavy-handed things as we go. And will we see them from the West like we see them from other countries, right? So here we go. And again, Europe is starting to teeter, and they're not sure what they're going to do because they're now thinking they're going to have to confront the United States. Can you imagine such a notion that they're now thinking that? Well, that's a fool's errand. If cooperation on Greenlandic independence fails, a preventative EU troop deployment could avert a U.S. confrontation. I doubt it. They'd probably just go arrest them all. I'm sure the U.S. Marines would just go in and say, look, guys, we can either take you out or we can just escort you. And they would escort them. So Greenland, if the U.S. wants it bad enough, has no way of defending itself. And Europe certainly can't. Europe has no way of defending itself, much less Greenland. Europe can't even defend itself against Russia. So how can it defend itself? It's just nonsense. Just utter nonsense. And Trump is talking like it's nonsense because it is. And that's why he's saying things the way he's saying them, because he knows darn well there's nothing they can do to stop him. And so, here we go. Meanwhile, what we started to see, of course, is more of the Middle East area maintaining, a theater of open war, and keeping that, regardless of all these peace talks and all that stuff. Regardless of all that, here's the truth on the ground. The U.S. airstrikes continue. Okay, so this is just 2 days ago. U.S. airstrikes hit ISIS targets in Syria. Officials say U.S. conducted large-scale strikes against multiple Islamic State targets across Syria on Saturday. U.S. Central Command said the strikes targeted at least 35 locations. Whoa, 35 different places, including more than 90 precision munitions fired and more than 20 aircraft. So there's a lot of dead people there. and their equipment doesn't work anymore. And there's a lot of rubble and debris, okay, because they're parking lot makers and they don't leave a lot of people alive. So we're not going to hear a whole lot more out of that group. It looks to me like they have served their purpose and now they're yanking their chain. And this is one of the troubles with becoming part of whatever this theatrical thing we're watching is you don't know when your day of exit is going to be called. And that looks like ISIS's day of exit has come. And so they are now eliminating them, wholesale eliminating ISIS. And the way that they're eliminating them is almost like they want to eliminate a lot more than the people. Like, are they eliminating connections? Are they eliminating information? You know, I mean, how did this stuff get started? There's a lot of discussion and rumor about that. So what are they really bombing? What are they getting rid of? Right? What we won't know for 20 years, that kind of thing. So again, here we are. And we've seen just that spirit of war. Conflict has now loosed in the nations as prophesied, by the way. So we now are seeing that. And again, it continues on cycles, saints. This is something you cannot get around. Now, Iran is threatening to hit Israel. I don't know if you guys knew that, but yes, Iran is now threatening to hit Israel in response to any U.S. strike. So the tit for tat is going to continue regardless. So basically what they're saying is if you hit us because we're hitting our people. So we're hitting our people, we're killing now upwards of 2,000 by some reports. And if you hit us, well, then we're going to hit Israel. And like Israel's just going to sit there? Is that what you think? Iranian parliament speaks. U.S.-based ships could be targets. Right groups. Iran committing massacre with at least 192 killed. Israel calls on EU to label IRGC a terror group. And so Tehran is threatening on Sunday to retaliate against Israel as well as the U.S. military bases in an event of U.S. strikes on Iran, issuing the warning as Israeli sources say their country was on high alert. And Iran's clerical establishment is facing the biggest anti-government protest since 2022, and U.S. President Donald Trump has reportedly threatened to intervene in recent days amid reports of growing death toll from a crackdown on demonstrations. And so, again, it is a bit, hypocritical of the United States, given the kinds of protests going on right here in our own country. It just beggars belief that we're even having these conversations. But it goes to show you the disconnectedness and the extreme results of the right-wrong paradigm. When people believe they're right and somebody else is wrong, the level of justification that comes from that is murderous. It's murderous. Okay, so this is very dangerous. And now we're seeing, of course, moderation. Trump says Iran wants to negotiate after reports of hundreds killed in protests. And so there is discussion that there may be some negotiations, but publicly the hard line continues. Donald Trump said Sunday that Iran's leadership had called him seeking to negotiate after repeatedly threatened to intervene military if Tehran killed protesters. And for 2 weeks, Iran has been rocked by a protest movement that has swelled in spite of a crackdown. And rights groups are warning it's becoming a massacre. And I do believe that there's no way around it. One of the things that's happening in Iran is very heated debates going on in the streets. When you get 2,000 people dead, or upwards of 2,000 people dead, this is no longer like a government protest. This is now a national argument going on in the street. Okay? It's a national argument. And it's become violent because that's how passionate the feelings are. Those that support the Ayatollah and the Islamic Revolution that took place in 1979, and then those that support the Shah of Iran and the what they would consider to be the legitimate government of Iran, right? So there's people on both sides of this issue right inside their own country, and this divide has been stoked, perhaps intentionally, by those who are very good at that. And so now the country is dissolving from within. So they don't have to worry about enemies from without now because their enemies are now within. And yet, nevertheless, here's their boast. This is the kind of stuff you keep seeing. You see we are ready for war. Iranian foreign minister declares they're ready for war. Ready for war with who? Tehran opens the negotiations with the United States. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says, warning that Iran is also prepared for a new war with Israel and the United States. But we want to go negotiate. We want to negotiate, but we're ready for war. Who's buying that? That's like the Scottish in Braveheart, where they go, well, we got to negotiate, and then we'll do a deal, and then we'll go home. Right? That's what this makes me think of. It's like, you're not really ready for war. Iran is willing to negotiate with the United States, but it's also prepared for war with U.S. and Israel, Tehran's top diplomat said Thursday, warning that the Middle East could soon face a major escalation. I do believe that's true. And I do believe that we have the potential to see a massive level of escalation. As a matter of fact, I saw a post on Twitter where diplomat planes from the Russian embassy were leaving Israel and taking all their diplomatic people out of Israel. This is a dangerous sign because this indicates they're expecting conflict and problems. So is Israel safe right now? I don't know. And this is why it's important for us to pray for the Kodeshim that are in the land of Yasharel, and especially those in the city of Yerushalayim. We must pray for her safety. Now, obviously, the reality is that there's going to continue to be rhetoric. So now the question is, will that rhetoric spill over into kinetic action? So far, we've seen a lot of evidence that indicates that it will. The kind of things that are said tend to foretell or tend to, preempt, if you will, the actual kinetic action. And so Iran's army chief is threatening a response to Trump and Netanyahu's hostile rhetoric, according to them. So country's top judge says there will be no leniency for growing demonstrations, while President Mossad Pezeshkian orders security forces not to crack down on unarmed protesters. And of course, Iran's military chief warns Wednesday that Iran will not stand by and allow itself to be threatened by outside powers. So it sees this insurrection movement as coming from outside of Iran after the United States and Israel backed anti-government protests. So again, the support for the anti-government protests coming from outside the United States or outside Iran is being perceived a certain way. And of course, that's part of their problem. The Islamic Republic of Iran considers the escalation of hostile rhetoric against the Iranian nation a threat and will not tolerate its continuation without responding. So this explains why they decided to go ahead and shut the internet off and discontinue allowing certain things to come into Iran because, again, they're trying to bring their country into a reasonable place. I saw a lot of reports going back and forth. The son of the former Shah of Iran is also a big lightning rod in this conflict because there are those that believe that he should come back and rule Iran, right? So there's all kinds of discussions going on. And we just saw the Maduro removal, and that changed Venezuela. So, by removing leadership and putting in new leadership, you can affect a nation literally almost overnight. And so that is what I think they are trying to do with Iran. And I think this was Trump's plan A, rather than going with plan B, which is, bombardment and war, is let the people throw out the evil, what they perceive to be an evil government and bring in something more reasonable. So this continues to be the effort. I think that we're seeing an effort to consolidate power, whatever you may call it. It continues unabated. And so the regime did cut internet across as protests claimed 44 lives across major cities. And again, we're getting so many different numbers that I'm not sure which one to believe as far as what the actual count of death toll is. Again, I saw upwards of 2,000. Now, switching gears, there's another area that is now coming under scrutiny. The island of Cuba is, of course, getting more and more attention. Now, I'll explain why here in a moment. Because, again, many times we don't really see the geopolitical forces at play. Trump's ultimatum to Cuba is make a deal before it's too late or face consequences. And so right now there's pressure being put on the Cuban government. Now, let me tell you what is playing out here. Trump's vowing to halt all oil and financial support to Cuba following Maduro's capture. So one of the things Cuba was relying on was Venezuelan support. President Donald Trump signaled a hardline stance toward Cuba on Sunday, vowing to halt all oil and financial support and urging the island nation to make a deal before it's too late. Now, what he did right away after that is he authorized Sheinbaum in Mexico, the new leader of Mexico, president of Mexico, to still continue to supply oil to Cuba. It's almost like an olive branch effort. In other words, it looks to me like there's some negotiation going on in Cuba, because if they cut off the oil and they cut off Cuba, Cuba will implode like Iran. Yes, it will. The Cubans are on the edge of having had about enough, and this would just take them over the edge, and that country would disintegrate. And so that is probably what Donald Trump is threatening, and he knows what he's talking about, because the people themselves will blame the government as the thing in the way. And the way that the U.S. would probably posture themselves is just like Venezuela, where they would be ready to come in with contracts and government money and all kinds of things. So you guys are just in the way. You get out of the way. We're going to come in with all this great stuff for the people. That puts the pressure on the people to remove what they perceive to be bad government, right? So who knows? There's probably floating some wonderful plans for Iran. And if you get rid of the Ayatollah, we're going to do all kinds of wonderful things, right? So that's how they do things. It's how regime change works, folks. Nothing new under the sun. Israel is, of course, hitting 7 Hezbollah sites in 2 waves of strikes across southern Lebanon. And again, like I said, folks, it's like all over. I was trying so hard to organize all of these different military things, and it's everywhere. They're fighting, they're arguing everywhere. And so this just happened in southern Lebanon. Israel strikes across Lebanon today have so far hit 7 Hezbollah sites in multiple parts of the country south, with more than 30 munitions used in 2 waves of attacks. The times of Israel has learned. So now we've opened yet another war front in southern Lebanon, or northern Israel. And there's indications that the U.S. president has given his green light. I think we had an article to that effect, to allow this, right? So again, now we're maybe going to see even more conflict with Israel, besides the potential conflict with Iran, right there with Lebanon and Hezbollah. Now, again, in this conflicts that we've seen, one of the things that's come out is the fact that the U.S. has some spooky weapons. How many of you heard about that? Did you guys hear about the spooky weapons? Sorry, I haven't been watching the comments. Did you guys hear about the spooky weapons? No? Well, there are spooky weapons, guys. Spooky stuff. And let me see if I can. Oh, okay, I can't do that. So anyway, the U.S. is using sonic weapons, according to this report, that in Venezuela, the report was that they basically used a sonic weapon to disable the troops for the Venezuelan army. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt shared a viral account on social media. So the viral story from a man claiming to have witnessed a U.S. operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro states that the U.S. used sonic weapons during the mission to incapacitate opposing forces. And White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt shared the eyewitness interview on X and encouraging her followers to read the statement. So it gave a lot of credibility to the report. Obviously, she is the White House Press Secretary, so can't exactly ignore her when she says, pay attention to something. So basically what they're saying is they got weapons. They got weapons you didn't know about. Okay. When you thought you were going to fight and you can't hear, you can't walk. All right. So how many know that Venezuela woke up and realized, wow, they were nowhere near ready for that level of fight? I said Venezuela woke up and realized they were nowhere near ready for that level of fight. But they are ready now that they woke up. And so now things have changed in Venezuela, and that is why they are now saying to the U.S. people that are there, U.S. warns Americans to leave Venezuela, because now they are reacting. It took them a minute to figure out what happened, but they figured it out. And not everybody's happy. They're warning Americans to leave Venezuela immediately as armed militias are setting up roadblocks. And, of course, Americans are of high price. Armed militias known as colectivos reportedly setting up roadblocks to search vehicles for evidence of U.S. citizenship. And that is not a good idea to be an American in Venezuela right now. The U.S. government issued a new security alert Saturday urging Americans in Venezuela to leave the country immediately, citing security concerns and the U.S. government's inability to provide emergency assistance, according to the U.S. Embassy in Caracas. So, U.S. citizens in Venezuela should leave the country immediately, the embassy said in a January 10th security alert. So again, where are we going to see civilian casualties now in Venezuela? It is highly likely. It is highly likely. And as a matter of fact, as one of the things that I was warning about is this rhetoric level was way too high. It was too combative and it was too public. And now you're going to incite the people of these countries in a certain way. And even if you were to solve the diplomatic issues, because you let it spill over into the people of those countries, those attitudes may last for decades now. So you have just set back U.S. Relations with the Southern Hemisphere. You just set it all back with this bravado, machismo, stupidido, dumb-o, as far as I'm concerned. So it was not necessary to be throwing so much machismo out there. And that just invoked a different kind of response than would have been productive. They needed to make the case that this was a criminal who was involved in drug trafficking, that his removal would liberate a country, would free resources, free benefits, free good things, right? That is the way that you present that. You don't go out there and put your finger in everybody's face and call Latin America, Latinos. Boy, somebody should have told them that was really stupid. Okay. They may lose the war, but they win a lot of battles along the way. And so here is the result of it. And this is something that we're going to be dealing with now for a while. Russia is now sending a submarine to escort a tanker that the U.S. tried to seize off Venezuela. The Wall Street Journal was reporting this. And of course, this was last week. Russia has deployed a submarine and other Navy vessels to escort an empty, aging oil tanker that has been trying to evade the U.S. blockade near Venezuela. And the Wall Street Journal reported on Tuesday, citing a U.S. official. So they want to make sure that you know that it's empty, so that there's no real reason to stop this vessel. I mean, there's nothing on it. It's just nothing. We're just trying to get out of there. There's more to this than all meets the eye. None of this is what we think. And I doubt, my brother says, I doubt it's empty. So do I. So do I. I doubt it's empty too. It may not be full of oil, but it may be full of other things. So I think it's still reasonable to go check, right? And so we're going to continue to see this atmosphere. And now getting back into the domestic atmosphere here in the United States, and I think this is going to affect the world because it tends to. We're seeing, again, an attitude of protest. So the same thing you're seeing in Iran, guess what, folks? It ain't just Iran. It ain't just Europe. It ain't just Africa. It ain't just anywhere else. You know, it's America, too. And, I mean, they are mobilized. Look at this. Okay, anti-ICE protest spread across the U.S. after the fatal shooting of a Minneapolis woman. And I got to tell you something, while we all mourn the death of anyone who dies, it's a ridiculous thing to see this death. It is always weaponized. They always weaponize somebody's death. And here we go again. Protesters took to the streets of Minneapolis, Portland, and other cities on Saturday with more than 1,000 anti-ICE demonstrations planned across the United States. And of course, this is in response to the killing of the Minneapolis woman, Renee Good, by an immigration agent. And she was, of course, for those of you that don't know, she was following the agents around to the various checkpoints that they were establishing and using and doing, and she was antagonizing them. So she was not just somebody driving down the street, as they kind of wanted to make it sound. It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't justify it, and I think it was excessive use of force. That's just my opinion. I don't think the woman had to die. I don't know why he aimed at her head. I'm just saying, you didn't need to kill her. That's just my opinion. But I wasn't in the situation. A car wasn't coming at me. And I don't think any of us put in this situation can say how we would react, because you don't know. You got adrenaline running. You got all kinds of things. So there's two sides to this. It's very sad and tragic and terrible. But nevertheless, what I think we're seeing is manipulation. And so while on the one hand, we can feel a certain way about the woman and we can feel terrible about that. And we can say, man, that's bad. And I don't care what your politics are. This woman was a parent and I feel horrible that she's gone now. On the other side of this, I'm seeing a manipulation of this death, a manipulation of this bloodshed to stoke up a fight and to create chaos in a country. And now we have 1,000. So this is the anti-Kirk movement, right? So, you saw the Turning Point USA movement because Kirk died and they had all those Turning Point USA chapters erupt. This is their counter movement. The Renee Good is the counter movement to the Charlie Kirk. So they're going to bring up chapters of Antifa or whatever, anti whatever they're anti, So now, of course, a lot of what we're seeing is anti-Zionist protests. So this is now becoming a very, very strong thing. And again, a very dangerous attitude to take. Very, very harsh. And this is very dangerous. And we're seeing a lot more of it. So dozens of anti-Zionist protest rallies against land sales in the West Bank and Palestine on Thursday were caught on camera shouting a pro-Hamas chant in front of the yeshiva in central Queens. And so this is right here in the United States, and we're starting to see a lot of protesting, a lot of things. And so again, guys, what does this mean? It means we're coming into a time period of confrontation that's not going to go away. And so you got this guy, Stephen Miller. I can't show you the whole story because it's behind a paywall, but what it basically is going to tell you is that this genius says that, the world's got to be ruled by force. That's what this rocket scientist wants to tell you is, we got to rule the world by force. Yeah, that's his theory. Sorry, that's the most I can show you without. We don't break those paywalls. And we're complimented for that, by the way, because we have to show respect. And that's a respectful thing to do. So if you want to see more of that story from that particular site, you got to go there. You got to join. You got to do that. That's not us, and we don't control that. I don't like that plan or that process that they do, but it is what it is. But we don't broadcast their stuff behind a paywall. We don't want to violate their rights. So we don't do that. But we can see enough from the headline. I mean, that was enough for us to know that that's basically what they're doing. And they're justifying themselves, guys. And they typically do. That's really what we're seeing is justifications. And Russia is now firing nuclear-capable orsniks. We talked about this. And this report just came out again last week. So this isn't going away. This is a serious thing. And this is nuclear-capable. And this is why I was saying, you got a supersonic, hypersonic missiles that can't be shot down. I'm not so impressed by your battleship. So Russia fired a nuclear-capable missile on Ukraine last Thursday in a retaliatory strike for an alleged attack on official residence of President Vladimir Putin. And by the way, he is really upset. So Zelensky, my understanding is he now has a Israeli passport, and he's trying to figure out where he's going to go because they want him dead. There's some people that really want that guy hanging from something. So this is really becoming a challenge. Now, moving back to the domestic situation here in the United States, the FBI has shut down Minnesota's investigation into the ICE shooting of that protester, and they're blocking access to evidence. So Minnesota investigators are facing obstacles in probing a fatal ICE shooting. And I think part of the reason for this is because of the ongoing probe that's going on in fraud, or the fraud probe going on in Minnesota, that's involving even the governor. So I think there's a lot of reason to be concerned about Minnesota. Minnesota investigators said they have hit a roadblock in the probe of fatal U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement shooting after the FBI declined to participate in a joint investigation, officials said on Wednesday. And I doubt very seriously there will be any charges leveled against anyone there. I think that's what the local community is trying to do. They've already threatened that. And that's exactly what the police chief of Philadelphia said. You don't want this smoke, and we will charge you with state crimes, which President Trump cannot pardon you from, is what they were basically saying. And so they're setting themselves up already before they can even open the door adversarially. So we're going to see more and more conflict right here in the United States. And as a matter of fact, Minneapolis public schools canceled their classes for the rest of the week because they expected more conflict. So I think that you're going to continue to see
more and more what they call safety concerns coming out, especially from Minnesota. And now the governor of Minnesota is talking about, this is Governor Walz, who is in the midst of this fraud investigation, was the candidate for vice president in the last election, and he is now being pressured to resign. Walz is preparing the National Guard after a woman was killed in an ICE operation and never been at war with the federal government, but now he's calling it a war with the federal government. Well, that's, I think, convenient for him because he's got some things that he's trying to get away from. And this happens to be a convenient situation to lessen some of the attention that was pummeling the Walz administration. And he said Wednesday that the state's National Guard was prepared to deploy if necessary following the fatal shooting of the woman during a federal immigration enforcement operation. Well, that won't work because you cannot deploy the National Guard, which are federal troops basically, against other federal forces. So that won't work. And it would be, it's an empty threat and it's nonsense. Nevertheless, we are seeing a very ignorant police forcing, or not ignorant, or aggressive enforcement efforts going on around the country. And this is very dangerous and scary. So we don't have the same level of respect for human life and human dignity that we once had. And this is coming right out of ICE's own words themselves. They're saying it's wartime in America. This is not good rhetoric. It's not good for this to be the locker room talk, if you will. Think about it like that. The locker room talk of police departments or any kind of law enforcement. If the locker room talk is it's wartime and the citizens are the victims, this is not good. That means those forces have essentially turned on the people themselves. So let's hope that cooler heads are going to prevail and turn some of this around. ICE just launched a wartime recruitment campaign and seeks agents who want to defend their culture. And there will be more Renee Good. So there are very, very strong feelings on both sides. And on January 3rd, 4 days before the horrific killing of Renee Good, the Department of Homeland Security put out a press release saying the headline bragged ICE announces historic 120% manpower increase thanks to a recruitment campaign that brought in 12,000 officers and agents. Well, yeah, that'll happen when you got a down economy and you're offering employment and you're the only employer that'll return phone calls, because everybody else is downside. Everybody else is getting ready for what's coming next. So no, it's going to be really easy to recruit. It's going to be really easy to put people on the payroll, and they don't even have to be nice people. So there's that. All right. By the way, just another indicator that, in fact, Iran is collapsing. There is some reports that Iran's gold allegedly was flown to Russia as the supreme leader braces for collapse. So is that true? I don't know. I just saw this and unfortunately was out of sequence, but I just thought I'd share that with you guys so that one more time you can kind of throw that in the back of your thinking and say, so what are they thinking about over there? It looks to me like they're planning on the end. And so the same thing with Greenland and all these other things. They're not going away. Here's another quickie. I just throw this in there. It was a little out of sequence, but the U.S. will do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, said the president. So we can expect that is not going to go away anytime soon. Just thought I'd share that. Now, moving on to more of the domestic front, something that I think is very important before we run out of time is something that we've been predicting and something that we are standing against. We have a patent called the Living FAQ, which reduces our AI power consumption by 90%. Did you hear me stutter? Did I stutter? No, I didn't. I didn't stutter. 90%. These guys don't know that yet. It's a new patent. We just did it. So they're going to wake up and figure that out. But until then, look what they're doing. They're building the one in Phoenix, right? So that one's worth, what was it, $11 billion for that one? And enough power for 1.1 million homes. So this is for their AI. This is how important it is to them, right? So Meta secures 6.6 gigawatts of nuclear power for their AI. And so nope, not for homes, not to lower your electric bill, not to help you out, Mr. and Mrs. business owner with a lower electric cost manufacturer. No, this is for AI. Meta locks long-term nuclear supply with Vistra, TerraPower, and Oklo and anchor its Prometheus supercluster and future data centers. So Meta is making one of the boldest energy plays in tech, locking in up to 6.6 gigawatts of nuclear power. And this is the kind of power needed for these data centers. So those people that didn't know how much power AI utilizes, here you go. Okay, here you go. The company is splitting its bets, uprating legacy Vistra reactors in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So they don't care where the power comes from, and they don't care what neighborhoods are affected by it. All they care about is bring me the wire, bring me the fire. I got to send my AI out there. My AI has got to go, right? Got to make us the moolah. And so that is what we are now seeing. And that is why it's important that there be a counter voice in the earth. How many want to leave them in charge? Want to leave them in charge, guys? You want to leave them in charge of whether or not your family is going to have electrical power? I don't trust them, do you? I love your thoughts in the comments. And Trump is now talking about tariffs of as much as 500%. Did you guys see this on India and China? And it's what is new, nod to a new bill. The proposed legislation is sanctioning Russia Act of 2025 authorizes the U.S. president to impose massive duties on countries that knowingly engage in purchase of Russian origin petroleum. Wow. They're straight coming for Russian oil. Straight coming for it. U.S. President Donald Trump has cleared a sweeping sanction bill that could expose India to tariffs as high as 500% over its continued imports of Russian oil. So they are really trying to get everybody to drop Russian oil really, really badly. I don't think it's going to work. Russia's having the best year ever. China is, of course, having a great year. So I don't think it's going to work, but I do think what it's going to end up doing is it's going to change the partners that America does have. So there'll be countries we just don't do business with anymore at all. And that we actively oppose. So the world is it's becoming like an economic war, right? It's becoming more of that and less of a shooting war and more of a money war is what it's looking like to me. Okay. So that's where we're at right now. One of the other things that we're keeping an eye on, guys, and many people are concerned about the loss of jobs and employment and all of that going on in our world. And the reality is that as I've been telling you guys for some time, I've been trying to give you the clue in, give you the deep dive. Okay. You got to prepare your brain. And this is for parents out there. You guys are raising your next generation. Listen, get your brain around this. Okay. There is no going back to the 1900s where everything was done analog. There is no going back to manpower, the way we used manpower. We've come too far. We've learned too much. And we've also seen the unreliability of human labor effort. So businesses are investing at record pace to replace human labor with anything that they can rely on more consistently. And all of you will know it, and all of you will say it and admit it. You might be the exceptional worker. You might be an exceptional person because you're the remnant. You're unique. You're a believer in Messiah. You give good service, right? For whatever someone pays you. You work hard. You're the exception. You're the exception. Most people are just taking advantage of employers. So this is why you're going to continue to see stories like this. And this is why I warn you, and why it's important that you start discovering new skill sets. Okay. And it's one of the things that we're working on here as a house, but we strongly encourage everybody to be working on this. All right. And right now we're learning that robots, look at this, guys. I want you to see this because I want you to think about the training cycle for people, for employees, right? And this robot learned 1,000 tasks in one day from a single demo. It's hard to compete with that, nor should you want to. A new study shows robots learning faster and more like humans. Of course they do, because they're mimicking humans. More robot headlines follow a similar script. Machine masters one narrow trick in a control lab, and then comes the bold promise that everything is about to change. I usually tune those stories out. Unfortunately, this isn't one of them. This is real. And so these guys are, in fact, achieving great results with robotics. Why is that good news? You should not be upset. You may be going, oh, they're going to cost us jobs. Jobs you don't want. Guys going down in the sewer. You want to go down there? No, send the robot. Guys going down to kill rats. You want to do that? No, send the robot. Guys want to go down into the debris to get somebody who's trapped. You want to go down there and maybe trap 2 people? No, send the robot. There's a lot of jobs, guys, that we're not going to want to do, that we're going to want to send the robot. So I think that we've got a little bit of an attitude issue that needs to be checked, because we need to deal with reality. We already use robotics in a lot of things. We use robotics whenever we can. You all use an automated car wash. You don't think anything about that robot washing your car. I said, you don't think about nothing when that robot's washing your car. Okay. And so we need to lose this thinking that we're like competing with the technology and recognize it works for us. You need to take a step up above it. Okay. So you see where I'm talking? Go above it so that you are not below or subject to it. Now, everybody that violates the commandments of the Most High is going to end up ruled by AI. One more time. Everybody who violates the commandments of the Most High will end up ruled by AI. Right there in Joshua chapter 7. Now, pay attention to what's going on, because they're turning it all over to ChatGPT, which is, again, I'm starting to wonder if this thing wasn't put together by, I don't know who put it together, really. I'm starting to wonder about it, right? So ChatGPT wants your medical records now. And these are major risks in that, because of this, there's a lot of information in there that could be very dangerous. So ChatGPT will see you now. The artificial intelligence chatbot is launching a new health mode to give medical advice. What could go wrong? Things being sued by 5 people right now for wrongful death. But hey, let's go into the medical field. I'm not kidding, guys. This is where we are. Okay. So I think this is insanity, but here we are. Others use examples of post-surgery food guides, health insurance provider picks. They make it sound innate and innocent. Never stays innocent. Why? Because human nature. What do I know about human nature? Humans are lazy. Humans are lazy. If it sounds good, they'll go with it. They're easy to fool. And so, and with AI's hallucination problem, which is considerable, you're going to have them diagnosing things that don't exist, talking about problems, and then they'll all say is, oh, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. Meanwhile, the person's dead or had surgery they didn't need or all kinds of other things. So this doesn't end well. But nevertheless, I only warn you about it because it isn't something you're not going to talk them out of it. So those people that are like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get involved in it. Okay. Like your protest is going to make it stop. Did it work when they were putting the Walmart, when they were putting those Walmart scanners in and you were protesting those? Did it work? Did they not put the scanners in because you protested? Oh, they didn't care. Oh, imagine that. Yeah, I don't think they're going to care, guys. I don't think they're going to care about our protests, about their digital world and their digital ideas. Okay. I think they're going to continue on regardless. Look, even the nurses themselves, look at this, guys. Even the nurses are on strike. They don't even listen to the nurses. There's 15,000 nurses are involved in a strike in New York State. Okay. They got all the secrets. They're bringing all the smoke out in the street. They don't even care. Thousands of nurses in 3 hospital systems in New York City went on strike Monday after negotiations through the weekend failed to yield breakthroughs and their contract dispute. So we've got entitlement gone on steroids, and we've got a medical system that's broken. And on top of that, you got people that's still entitled to, that want to still get paid. They still expect to get the moolah. And you got a disintegrating, falling apart system. Why? Because people are getting smarter by the day. They're starting to do natural remedies. They're starting to do their own research, and they're no longer buying into big pharma the way they used to. So this is this is suffering from a massive level of attack coming from multiple directions, as people are figuring out that they can't trust everything they're being told, right? So they have to get a little bit more proactive in their own care. Very important, folks. It's a reality of our life. So this AI problem isn't going away, not only from a power standpoint, but also from an influence standpoint in your daily lives. Very important that you get the breakthrough. A couple of quick stories before we close up tonight. And this is, again, going right back to the issue of child rearing. And one of the things that we hit on pretty consistently here is the importance of homeschooling and being proactive in the education of your children. If you give that over to others, you may end up with a Gen Z that can't read. And I mean, that is tragic. You got a 19-year-old, you got a 20-year-old who can't read a whole sentence. That is an epic parental failure. Let me say that one more time. That is an epic parental failure. You cannot blame the school systems for that. That was a parent who should have noticed at age 10 that this kid's not learning in this method and there needed to be an intervention. To let that kid continue to go down that road, knowing full well it wasn't working, man, by 10 years old, by 12, he's supposed to be able to read the Torah. He's supposed to be able to read the commandments. If he can't read by 12, how many know that we've got a problem? And they're waiting until they're in college? So this system is broken. I don't know what they're actually doing, but they're not educating students. That we do know. And one of the things that we're finding out as we keep an eye on this stuff, guys, is they're all up to all kinds of weird stuff. Look at this Texas middle school teacher allegedly did this with a teenage student. We're a family-friendly show, guys, so we got to keep it cool. In a Walmart parking lot. Are you joking me right now? Middle school teacher. Here we go again. Accused of this. This they know how to do. And what is with the 14-year-olds, for crying out loud? What is with that? Man, I tell you, we first started this broadcast years ago. One of the stories that we had talked about was, 14-year-old having cameras in her shower, for crying out loud. Crazy nonsense that people do. How dare you? This is the world we live in that no longer has respect. They basically tied a blanket around the front seats, headrests of her SUV, did the deed with the 14-year-old while the other two teenagers sat in the back seat. Are you kidding me right now? You just can't make this stuff up. This is our American system. And if you're not disgusted, then I don't know how I can help you, because I am, and I'm pretty sure most of the veterans, most of the grandfathers, most of the people out here are going, you have got to be kidding me. No, we did not send our child to school for that. So once again, folks, this is why it's so important that we pay attention. And I want to remind everybody that despite the fact that we all know where the bad guys are, and we all know what the bad guys do, and we all know that they're covering for each other, I just want to remind everybody that there ain't nobody going to jail for this. Okay? Nobody. Y'all can read about it. You guys can kvetch about it. You guys can talk about it till you're purple. Okay? But Captain QAnon up there, he was full of it. Captain QAnon is up there defending the Federal Reserve. Boy, that's got to feel like a bait and switch. Captain QAnon up there defending this nonsense. That's where we are, folks. So those that were looking for somebody to ride in on a political white horse and come save the day wearing a red hat, well, I think we're all waking up from that delusion. And so I'm thankful that you are all awake. We need to now step into the role of believers that tread on serpents and scorpions. We need to be the people that are written about in the book of Malachi, who tread down the wicked. We don't do that by force. We do that with wisdom, with superior thinking, with superior solutions that make them marvel and say, you're right, that is a better way. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I pray this broadcast has been a berakah to you. We're always thankful when you stop by. Thank you for making this a part of your week. We're always appreciative. Shalom.